Good morning. The Out of Bounds Show is driven by your next Nissan Pathfinder, Nissan Rogue, Canon Nissan, on the Hill in Jackson. Both new body styles. Nissan Pathfinder, Nissan Rogue, Canon Nissan in Jackson. This is ESPN 105.9 The Zone, SEC Insider Hit this morning. Presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue. The official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds Show. We're on YouTube right now. You can search Out of Bounds Sports. We're streaming the show on the Out of Bounds radio app and thezone1059.com. We welcome in Tom Luganbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN, and he joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Luke, did you ever own or do you and your wife still own a George Foreman grill?
I do not still own one, but heck yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And it worked great.
Yeah. We were talking.
Durable. They lasted forever. Like, how ingenious is that?
I know, man. We got into this discussion yesterday. Pretty amazing. He ended up making over $200 million in the deal, you know? Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it?
It is. And Hulk Hogan passed on it. Did you know? I think I may have known it, but I forgot it when we got in this discussion. That. Yeah. Yeah. And
so clearly then George Foreman had zero to do with the actual invention and design of it. All he was doing was speaking on behalf of it.
Absolutely.
See, that makes me sad, man. I thought the guy actually came up with something. Darn it.
You know, we were debating. We had some guys texting into the show that, like, some people loved it. Like you and I remember having one in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And we were kind of debating what was the best thing to cook. You know, people would throw burgers on it because that was easy. But then Jackson mentioned how great it was to throw a grilled cheese on there because it was perfectly made, even if you put bacon and, you know, maybe some other things in it. But it was perfect for a grilled cheese panini sandwich type deal too. You know, it had some versatility is my point.
It absolutely did. But like what I loved about it is that it actually did what it said it was going to do with anything that had grease, right? Like it cooked it on both sides and all the grease just come pouring out. Like I hadn't seen anything like that before.
Well, we like to fool ourselves. We thought, oh man, we're eating healthy. The grease is coming off here.
Right.
But it's all good. Yeah, all right, so I had to – and what else? What was the other question we were going to ask yesterday, Jackson Meadows? Because we had a coach on, and I just didn't feel like I could go there in season because sometimes they can't pivot at all. They're in such, you know that, Luke. I mean,
wait a minute. You had a football coach on or you had another sport?
No, I had Mississippi State is on a heater in baseball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they went to Vanderbilt and won and then beat Alabama in a series and they're going to go to the postseason. So we had
couldn't pull the trigger.
No, because I've done that before. You know the drill. Like when you visit with them right now, you can ask them about grilling out or going to the beach or something like that. During the season, it is few and far between that can go down another path just because they've got blinders on, right?
Right. Of course. Absolutely they do. I mean, and they're so hyper-focused on one thing and one thing only. And, you know, I got to be honest with you, that's what makes my UFL coaching calls every week so much fun because these coaches are so relaxed. They're having the time of their lives. They're not dealing with NIL. They're not dealing with the transfer portal. They got guys that they're coaching that have a chip on their shoulder, that are hungry, that will run through a brick wall for them. Mm-hmm. These guys are the happiest I've ever seen coaches. It's unbelievable. I asked Skip Holtz, who's on a 13-game win streak at Birmingham, and I was like, just how much fun are you having? And he's like, dude, this is the best job I've ever had in my entire career.
Wow. He's a good football coach. You're not dealing with any of
the headaches, and he's making really good money. And everybody comes to work ready to roll because they want to get back into the NFL or they want to get that NFL shot, right? And it doesn't matter if it's John DeFilippo, who's the head coach at Memphis, who was the quarterback's coach for the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. You've got all these guys, Mike Nolan, who's been a head coach a couple of times in the National Football League, and they all universally every week say the exact same thing. It's amazing.
Wow. Did you have Matt Corral last weekend?
Yeah, but he was in a reserve spot last week. He's for some reason, Adrian Martinez has decided to play football the way we thought he would when he first came out of high school.
Nebraska.
It just seemed to take 6 years, and he is like an entirely different guy right now. And he's kind of pulled away from that corral. I think both of them will be in NFL camps, this coming fall. And on top of that, Matt Corral's a guy that other teams in the league would love to have.
Yeah. I mean, Corral can play, bottom line.
Oh, yeah.
He's a baller. Believe me, I watched him every game. That guy, he's one of the best to ever play in the state. We've had some good ones come through here, as you know.
Yeah.
So,
no doubt.
All right, so who do you, Adrian Martinez, you just mentioned him, you mentioned Corral. Is there another QB or two, Lugs, in that league that may get a legit shot to make a roster in July/August in the NFL this year?
Well, I think A.J. McCarron will be back on an active roster. He actually asked the Cincinnati Bengals to let him out of his contract so he could play again.
Okay.
So, obviously not from a starting perspective. He's getting a little up there in age, but he's an ideal too, for somebody. He's been playing really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. Jordan Ta'amu's had his chances, and this is probably what he is at his best. Another Ole Miss guy there that's played well, particularly last year for DC, has been up and down for him this year. But I would say probably Corral and Adrian Martinez, A.J. McCarron. That would probably be about it, in my opinion.
Okay. I can't wait to see what those two do then. I'll keep an eye on that. Because Martinez, Nebraska decided to burn their football program down about 14 times since Solich went to the MAC. And, and Pelini wanted to fight everybody. And he was actually winning. I mean, both coaches were winning, so they just forgot who they were. They thought they were going to be just the world shifted under them. They were no longer going to be the Tom Osborne Nebraska. And so they couldn't handle winning 8 to 9 games a year. And as you know, they wanted to fire somebody every 5 minutes. And so if you went through that program, you didn't have a lot of stability. If Adrian Martinez had gone somewhere like Matt Corral did or some other guys, Dak and Eli and some of these guys that we cover, then it would have been a different deal. But he was supposed to be awesome in Nebraska. And so now he's kind of
supposed to be the savior.
Yeah.
And I will say this, because he was often injured. Okay. He was very erratic. He turned the ball over a lot. And that's why I say it's been unbelievable to watch how he's played. It's been really impressive. I
mean, Corral, I'm sitting here thinking and I hope everything's good with him mentally, but physically, I'm sitting here thinking Corral, he's better than Bryce Young. He could make a run at several teams that are, Steelers, Giants. I mean, there's all sorts of teams that don't know exactly what they are at the QB, Vikings, Titans. I could go on and on here. So, this is a guy that if he has his ducks in a row, he's more than gifted enough, Lugs, to either be the number 2 or make the number 1 look over his shoulder. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I don't think it has anything to do with physical attributes. It's other stuff.
Yeah.
It's decisions on the field, off the field, how he carries himself, all of those sorts of things, which is one of the reasons why he's in the UFL right now.
Yeah. And he was such a winner in college. He's got it in him. He's just got to go find it again.
Yeah.
I hope he does. I wish all these guys
Me too.
the best. Tom Luganbill on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. You and I were sometimes I like texting you and getting your thoughts on randomly. I think this was like Friday afternoon. I opened a beer and I was like, all right, Lugs, outside of Nick Saban, give me your, best, who you think have been the best coaches in college football in the 2000s. And you and I were going back and forth between Urban Meyer, Pete Carroll, Chris Peterson. And there's no doubt as of late you could throw, Kirby and Dabo in there. I mean, that is a heck of a group, and Harbaugh. But just if you put Harbaugh to the side, which I still think what he did was absolutely and totally remarkable. If you go Carroll, Urban, Peterson, Smart, and Dabo. To me, it's hard. It gets hard to because they're all amazing, Luke's.
No, they are all amazing. And I think one thing that when you asked me that I always think of is anybody who's been able to win a national championship at more than one place in back-to-back jobs, like Urban Meyer did, that's impressive, man. I mean, and I'll say this, when he was bouncing around a bit, he became the head coach at Bowling Green. Then he goes from Bowling Green to Utah. Now, both of those jobs, he inherited really good players and really good rosters, right? So you kind of started to ask yourself, okay, this guy's winning, he's winning big, but he's winning with everybody else's players. Then he made, I think, the smartest coaching decision of his life. When he had the opportunity to coach at Notre Dame or coach at the University of Florida, he knew academically on a national level, if he takes the Notre Dame job, he's going to be handcuffed. And he's going to have limitations that a Florida does not have, right? So you make that choice, and he had a history with Notre Dame. So that had to have been a hard decision, but it was the right decision professionally because it gave him the best options. And then you've got to be impressed because when he did go to Florida, and then when he did go to Ohio State, he was there long enough to prove that he could not only win with what he inherited, he could win with his own guys. Yeah. And I think that's really impressive.
No, I'm with you. So would you – all right, so this is outside of Saban in the 2000s. Urban won 3 national championships, but as you said, he did it at 2 different programs.
Yeah.
And his winning percentage is filthy. I mean, it is ridiculous. So he may be a madman, but he is brilliant as a football coach and CEO and all that. So would you in their prime as a college coach, would you take Urban or Pete Carroll?
Golly, that is a really, really good question because in their prime, Pete Carroll's a lot older than Urban, right?
Right.
So it's like his prime came later in his career than Urban's did. Urban's was a pretty fast rise. That is a really good question, man. Maybe just because of the various stops. I mean, having been a head coach at 2 other places before he was the head coach at Florida and Ohio State, you might give the nod slightly to Urban because he had to do it at places with no resources, do it at places with some resources, do it at places with unlimited resources, and the results were all the same.
Okay. Is Chris Peterson, for our listeners, most of you know this, he coached at Boise State and Washington. Absolutely brilliant what he did at both programs. Is Chris Peterson, and we're visiting with Tom Luganville with ESPN, is Chris Peterson the best coach in the 2000s not to win a national championship, Tom?
Yes, I would say so. But I would also say that he is not just the best coach to not win a national championship. He's the best coach to do it and sustain that level of success without having the resources of an Alabama, right, without having the resources of a Georgia or an Ohio State or an Oklahoma, Texas. That to me is what makes it so impressive. And then all of a sudden he goes on to Washington where he has those, and we all, saw what happened. And then we also saw how quickly it dropped off after he decided to step away before they hired Kalen DeBoer. So I don't think there's any question that not only is he one of the best coaches to ever coach that didn't win a national championship, I think his peers would tell you that.
Yeah. Tom Luganville on the Out of Bounds Show. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Outside of Saban, we're talking the best in the last 24 years, and there are some good ones. I mean, when you start talking about Urban, Pete Carroll, Dabo, Kirby, Peterson, and there's others. Okay. So if you go Urban, and it sounds to me like you're Urban 1, Pete Carroll kind of 1A.
Yeah.
Do you have Dabo there at number 2?
Well, I thought we were talking early 2000s when you first asked me this question. I may be wrong on that, but I know it was like, before the teens, right? Was kind of what we were thinking. But yeah, I think if you're going to run it up to now, you have to have Dabo Sweeney in there. I mean, you absolutely have to have him in there. You absolutely have to have Kirby. You know who else you have to have in there? Brian Kelly.
I was thinking about him.
Going all the way back to Grand Valley State. He's won everywhere.
He has. And he doesn't get the credit. I love to pick at Notre Dame on the show, just because of their arrogance, and they have slipped. But Kelly did a remarkable job there. I know people love to say, yeah, he won the title and got beat 38-0. Hey, he made it at Notre Dame with restrictions, which you just laid out as far as why Urban avoided going there, even though he's a Midwest or whatever guy, and went to Florida. So no, I think Kelly's there, but I think Dabo is right there in the mix with Pete Carroll and Urban. And so is Kirby. All four right there.
Of course they are. I mean, absolutely. And they're all doing it in an era that is so incredibly difficult to navigate that their predecessors and the people that came before them that we acknowledge as being great football coaches and things of that nature didn't have to deal with any of this. None of it. I mean, can you imagine taking Joe Paterno, Bobby Bowden, and Bear Bryant and putting them in 2023, 2024 and leveling the playing field and then adding all of these things to the pot? What would their success level be?
So, in my opinion, Bobby Bowden and Bear Bryant would adjust and adapt. And I don't think Joe Paterno would. That's just right off the top of my head.
You may be right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you go there, because if you wanted to do today's top 5 coaches in college football, it'd be extremely difficult, because we lost 2 of the top 5 this year, as you know. In my opinion, I mean, clear-cut Saban. I think it's clear-cut Harbaugh. So now everybody goes with Kirby, but then it's this big and Dabo. Is Dabo still to date? I know what he's done in his career. He's unbelievable. He's Hall of Famer. You can mix him in with the top 7, 8, 9 easily. Post World War II, I'm all about it, especially post 1980, post 1990. What he has been able, when you played for 4-1-2 at Clemson, good grief.
Yeah.
But today, right now, he got a little stubborn. Some coaches do that. Got a little high and mighty on the NIL. You got to embrace it. Is he still? But with those two moving out, I guess now he's definitely in the top 5 with Harbaugh and Saban retiring and Harbaugh going to the NFL. How do you see it, Luke's?
Yeah, I think that any time you win 10 or 11 games in the season and people are calling you a failure, that tells you all you need to know about the job you've done at the job you have.
Okay.
And you're right. I mean, it's not so much been stubborn on the NIL side. He gets that. He's been stubborn on the transfer portal side.
That's what I meant. Transfer portal.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. And so, and for various reasons, some I agree with, some I don't. I've actually backed him quite often on some of his takes because I think he's right. But he may be right, but it may cost him. So,
right.
You can be right and then, not have things work in your favor. But he is, when you consider what that job, remember the term Clemsoning?
Yeah.
Right,
when they lost to West Virginia in the Orange Bowl?
Yeah, that team, that term no longer exists, right? Because of what they've done there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he had to run, I think, Kevin Steele, who's a good football coach, to hire Brent Venables to turn the ship, so to speak, to get them where they wanted to go, right?
Well, remember, he had to fire Billy Napier and hire Chad Morris.
That's right. Napier.
Yep.
Wow. See, this is where I go with this. This is what Kiffin does.
Choices.
Hey, you have coaches that hang on to guys. Look, bottom line is some just can't get it done. You have to cut the cord this day and age.
Yeah.
You just like the Bobby Bowden, Paterno, Bo Schembechler era. Tom Osborne. You could mask it. There weren't as many competitive teams. There weren't as many.
Right.
You watch them you watch 2,000 athletes a year. There's so many more kids that can play today. Athleticism, athletes, one-on-one training, high school football programs doing it right. You have to move. That's why Kiffin impresses me, Luke's. If he even sniffs that a coach can't do it, boom, he's moving on. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, no, you got to make the hard decisions. That's why you get paid the big bucks, right?
And
not just standing there for 3 hours on the sideline wearing a headset.
That's exactly right. And we have witnessed that in this state. Coaches that have done it and coaches that haven't. And that's what I'll be looking for with Levy, because nobody nails all 10 of their assistants. And you just know through math that you missed on, let's just say 3. And so I'll be monitoring, because Kiffin has done this. I'll be monitoring if Levy, right after the Egg Bowl, if he recognizes who can do it and who can't, and you got to make the proper changes. And you just brought up a great point. Dabo did it like 12, 13 years ago with Napier at the time, right? He needed to mature. And was it Kevin Steele on the defensive side of the football, Luke?
Yep. Yeah, because they gave up 77 points to West Virginia, and that's when Kevin Steele got let go.
Holy Mary Olzab, they did. That is amazing. And then he made Brent, they both made each other. He made Brent Venables a name, because Brent was kind of out at Oklahoma because Stoops had brought his brother in, and there was too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Too many chefs.
Yep.
And exactly. Brotherly bond and blood's going to win out. And Venables goes to Clemson, and they really figured it out. And he goes with Scott and the other dude that's at Virginia as the co-OC. Yes. Yep. Scott and Elliott worked together, and boom, they found the magic in Clemson, South Carolina. Unreal.
They also found 4 consecutive quarterbacks.
They did. Starting with what? Taj Boyd?
Yeah.
Luke's?
Taj Boyd, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, even Kelly Bryant took him to a college football playoff.
That's right.
Crying out loud. Yeah.
That's unreal, that run.
Yeah.
How about that, Jackson? I hear Jackson over there going, whoa. That's some talent right there. Deshaun, arguably the best college football quarterback ever, with what he did. Unbelievable. All right. That was fun. So we here's what we accomplished. The debate continues.
Yes.
Taking out Saban. We're in this kind of urban care. It's really just who you prefer. It's personal preference is what it comes down to. It's Urban, Carroll, Dabo, Kirby in the mix. And
I think you got to throw Brian Kelly in there.
I agree. Yeah. And I think
Yep.
they're going to be so much better this year because they're going to be 100 times better on defense.
Correct.
Yeah.
Agreed with that.
All right, dude.
All right, buddy.
Take care. We enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, man. See you.
Tom Luganbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN. We'll keep an eye on Matt Corral. He's got all the tools, all the talent. I mean, the guy, he's got the arm, the legs. He did it again. He did it uphill against teams that were better than Ole Miss. If he can get everything right, he can make an NFL roster because there's guys that aren't as good as him playing in the league. We are the Out of Bounds Show. We're driven by your next Nissan Pathfinder, Nissan Rogue, Cannon Nissan in Jackson. All new body style for that Nissan Pathfinder, Cannon Nissan in Jackson.